And I did think that Rishi Sunak would maybe have a couple of sideswipes to make of the new Prime Minister. But I think obviously, he wanted to sort of give a sense of unity in the House today. And that's why he obviously went on Ukraine and defence spending. He very much could have, prodded him, and I thought he might do, on say, you have not got your, defence spending plans laid out in full like I did. But he decided not to. He was incredibly statesman-like, urging other countries to follow our lead, saying that he would have, that Keir Starmer would have the support of the Conservative backbenchers if he decided to push ahead on various Ukraine sort of related issues. He urged allies to provide further support to Ukraine, talked about the relative unity within NATO. Obviously, we've just had Keir Starmer coming back from his first trip to Washington. Also speaking, I thought, quite powerfully about when Keir Starmer might need to take military action. Obviously, Rishi Sunak has had to order our own armed forces to take action against Houthi rebels in Yemen, as well in the Black Sea. And obviously that's something that he has talked to Keir Starmer before about. We know that they've had phone calls. We know that he has been kept up to date there. And he said, you'd have my full support as doing this. And, this was an issue that Keir Starmer obviously had to make a huge part of during the election campaign, trying to persuade voters that he really sees that national security, we're living in a more dangerous world. It's one of his top priorities, he claims now. And like I say, it seemingly like he was going on an issue, Ukraine, defence, security, that seemed to have the support of most of MPs across the House, and something that which they can come together on, which obviously went in quite well, I thought, with you had Kim Leadbeater speaking about Joe Cox, and the sort of unity in the Commons was pretty palatable, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed. I mean, that's what's being picked up by some of our listeners here. Keir Starmer's first PMQs has started as a wholehearted love-in between the PM and Rishi Sunak.
Oh, it won't last, Jonathan. It won't last.
Cuddliest, touchy-feely PMQs ever. Kindest PMQs I've ever seen. This is an interesting one. It's like they've been taken aside by a grown-up and told to stop mucking about and do Parliament properly. So that is interesting, isn't it? Because one of the things that we always get complaints about, both as politicians and as journalists, is why is it too sort of pantomime in the House of Commons? Why aren't we asking questions seriously and answering questions seriously? And I think that's what we've seen today, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, it will not always be like this. We know that. But I think it is just Rishi Sunak accepting the reality of the parliamentary arithmetic in front of him. He has just had an incredibly crushing election defeat. It is not also him. It is not for him to be tearing chunks now out of the Labour Party. He obviously has said that he will stay as interim Conservative leader, but really it is for the other Tory leadership contenders now to stand up and to start making that case about what kind of party they want to be, about what leader they want to be. He will obviously be the placeholder, but he's interim leader now. He's not leader of the Conservative Party anymore. And he, if this is a sign of things to come, doesn't want to get into that nitty-gritty fight anymore. Has he just potentially just lost the fight? Is it maybe just that he's feeling a little bit like he has just had an incredibly crushing and bruising defeat, and he doesn't feel like he wants to go into that fight anymore? And to be honest with you, why should he? He's lost the election. He doesn't have to do this anymore. We know that Rishi Sunak, when he came into office, was of a different kind of politician to Boris Johnson, to Liz Truss. We know that he was always more of a grown-up than all of the previous Tory prime ministers that we've had in recent years, and clearly the pair of them get on very well. I don't know if you saw any of the King's speech last week, Jonathan, when they were walking to the House of Lords chamber together. They were laughing, they were joking, they seemed incredibly comfortable in one another's company. They clearly get on well in a way that previous prime ministers, especially Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, just absolutely didn't get on.
Well, look, I used to spend a lot of time in the chamber as a politician, but also as an advisor, helping leaders of the opposition and prime ministers prepare for outings at the dispatch box. Obviously Labour leaders, and that is, I hasten to add, it is a terrifying arena. I've seen political careers soar and political careers collapse. As Tony Blair said, it does make the heart beat a little faster. So in some ways, I understand what Rishi Sunak is doing. He's thinking about his legacy. He probably wants to establish himself as a statesman now. Keir Starmer today, I noticed when the questions got a little bit more political, was getting a few digs in about the terrible inheritance that they've been bequeathed by the Conservatives. So he is up for more of that political fight. But I suspect the real fight is going to come when we get the new Tory leader in November.
He will pull his punches back for that, and he doesn't need. But to quote The Simpsons, he's dead. You don't need to, continue to attack him. He is gone. He is no longer the Conservative leader. He is the past now.
Yeah, but of course, here's an interesting thing. There is no reason other than convention why Rishi Sunak could take PMQs. He could let the leadership candidates have a trial run out.
One each, just continue to rotate them out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he will, but there's nothing in the rules which stop that. But of course, it'll be in November that this battle will become high energy, high adrenaline.
Yep.
Again, I think between now and November, we're probably set for a few more occasions like this. But in politics, events come along, so you just don't know.
Exactly, you just don't know. And also, you did see a little bit of the fight come out in Keir Starmer when he turned to Ed Davey, right?
Yes.
And I think that will be where Keir Starmer will be quite keen to focus his attacks, right? This is a party that has gained a lot of seats in the next election, will be, chasing Labour votes in many areas. He will want to be turning his fire on the Liberal Democrats in the same way that I think he used to turn his fire on the SNP in some previous Prime Minister's questions as well. But do you think he will have thought that went quite well?
I think he'll be very pleased with that. I think he'll be pleased with that because in his response to Rishi Sunak, he was able to convey authority. He was able to convey strength. He looks like a Prime Minister.
He does.
That's always the thing that Keir Starmer had going for him. He passes that blink, question.
He looks very comfortable there, doesn't he? On that side of the dispatch box.
He looks very comfortable as Prime Minister. But you could also see, as in some of these answers to the other questions, Ed Davey, he was getting those attack lines in there. He was talking about the horrendous inheritances they've had from the Tories, how it's so much worse than the Tories were letting on. I think that's a theme we're going to be hearing more of.
We already are, aren't we?
From the disciplined Labour front bench.
Exactly. We've already heard it from John Healey yesterday talking about defence. We've heard a little bit about it from Bridget Phillipson. We've heard a little bit about it from Rachel Reeves. Things are so much worse, according to the government, than they expected. They finally got the chance to pull behind the bonnet. And yes, we are expecting to hear a bit more from Rachel Reeves next week about the state of the finances and a date for that first fiscal statement. We are also expecting at some point, probably late September, early October.
And the also thing I should say is, before we go to some of our callers, is that perhaps people viewing it don't realise this, the impact that PMQs has on the morale of the troops behind you. If you feel that your leader has done well, you're really in a great mood. If you feel that you've been on the back foot at PMQs, you're all a bit down in the doldrums. So it does have a huge, disproportionate impact on PMQs. Actually, such a disproportionate impact that doesn't really register with the electorate. William Hague was famously brilliant at PMQs, but it didn't matter a jot when the election came around in 2001.
Exactly, and you didn't hear it, obviously, on our tape, but there was a huge cheer when both the leaders come in, and when Keir Starmer came in to take his seat for the first time, a huge cheer would have erupted across that incredibly small chamber, which again, not many people realise is actually quite a lot smaller than, than it looks on the telly screens, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, looking at the mood on the back benches, it looks pretty buoyant, it looks pretty positive. They're absolutely crammed in. You can see on the shots that they are all standing at the very edge of the chamber because there's just not enough space for all these Labour MPs on the benches these days. But look, everybody there, it will be in a pretty joyous, buoyant mood. And yet this will be, I think this is the second to last. We are expecting, I think, one more Prime Minister's questions next week, I think, before this ends the parliamentary term. But, for Keir Starmer, this is, like you say, his first attempt to go stand from the dispatch box, stamp his authority on his new MPs and to really sort of lead them for the first time into this new parliament.
Yeah, well, I think he will be pleased with his outing.